Awesome. Well, it is 6 o'clock, so I think I'm going to start. We had so many more people register than this, so I'm expecting that a few will trickle in as we begin, but that's totally fine. We'll just get started because it's now 6. So hi, everyone. Welcome to our 4th webinar in our CSA webinar series. And we are here to talk about online tools to build your CSA program. My name is Emily, and I'm the engagement coordinator with Farm Folk City Folk, where we work to connect, empower, and inspire people to strengthen food systems. Coe Taylor, the communications coordinator at Farm Folk City Folk, is also here with us to help out. So thank you, Coe, for being here to help. And we are now more than halfway through this webinar series. So we have 2 more coming up, and I encourage you to take a look at the links that Coe is going to be putting in the chat for us. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm calling in today as a settler and a guest in the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And we have people joining us today from across the province and across the country even, so I'd like to acknowledge the traditional caretakers of those lands as well. The work that we do promotes a food system that was not traditionally adopted by these nations, and many communities still rely on these traditional systems. And it's important that we integrate these environments into our agricultural systems and promote the protection of these food systems as a part of our work. So I invite and encourage you to learn more about the nation's unceded lands that you are on and what food sustains them. We are joined today by Melad from the Sharing Farm, which is a nonprofit community farm located in Richmond. The mission of the farm is to provide fresh produce to the Richmond Food Bank and other local food security organizations, as well as to create shared experiences on the farm to promote community and well-being. And also here with us is Jeff from Rootsdown Farm, a vegetable farm in Gananoque, Ontario. At Rootsdown, as they continue to grow, they are beginning to appreciate that the farm is contributing to the local community by providing employment opportunities in sustainable agriculture. I would like to let everyone know that this event is being recorded and will be up on our website for future viewing. And during the presentations, just please keep yourself muted to help eliminate any background noise. As well, we invite you to turn your camera on. I understand that not everyone will want to do that, and that's totally fine. But if you are comfortable doing so, especially during our Q&A portion of the webinar, then please do. And just on a last note before I hand things off to our first presenter, Jordan Maher, who is the coordinator for the 2021 BC Organic Conference, produced a 40-episode podcast to replace the in-person seminars that they would normally do. And so one of the episodes is all about online commerce platforms for farmers. So it features actually one of our speakers today, Jeff, who has an in-depth conversation with Jordan about a variety of platforms, including Farmigo, Shopify, Localine, Squarespace, and a few more, I think, as well. Jordan has very kindly given us access to this, and I will be sending that episode to everyone who is registered for this event. And if you do like the content and you like the podcast, you should definitely check out the BC Organic Conference full program, because they have like a bunch of other great topics in the 40 episodes that they produced. So, so just letting you know that that's coming your way as well. So now I think I'll just pass it off to Jeff, and Jeff, feel free to share your screen and yeah. And also unmute yourself too.
Thank you. All right, hey everybody. Okay, can you guys see that now? No, right now. There you go. You guys see that okay? Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm just gonna get right into it. I kind of came up with things to think about when you are picking CSA software, and I guess an interesting differentiation is this is software that's for managing your CSA, not necessarily like managing the crops you grow for your CSA, kind of what I know of as crop planning software. So this is just for like managing, you know, the in and outs of your CSA. And so as part of that, I think it's good to know what kind of CSA you want to have, or that you like what you want or what you have. And so I kind of broke this down into 3 different types of CSAs that I see pretty frequently. The first would be the traditional CSA, the old school Elizabeth Henderson, no flexibility in pickup days, locations, or share contents, which is kind of what we started off with. And, you could pretty easily manage that with a Google Sheet or just like an old school paper form, where folks mail in their checks. I still remember back then how that used to work. Then there's the hybrid model, which is kind of what we do, which we'll talk about later, but that's lots of flexibility in share contents, pickup days or locations. And then member access to extra items, what we call add-ons or additional share types, like if you want to offer an egg share or a greens share or a grain share or something like that. And then the third kind is what I would sort of call lots of customization, which some people, I don't feel this way, but some people think really isn't a CSA anymore and more becomes kind of just like an online store. But so this would be full customization of almost everything, days, contents, delivery, you name it, right? And so I've just kind of roughly put, again, there's probably tons of other software, but software that I think could fill these needs. So Farmigo works really well for us in this hybrid model. And then under lots of customization, I think Harvey is probably the one that is really sort of taken over that space. But you could also use any of the Shopify, Square, Delivery Biz Pro is one I see a fair bit now, or you could have one custom made for yourself. And then the next thing is sort of what type of person you are. And some of this should probably be considered when you're choosing your CSA model. But so one of it is are you good with Excel and Google Sheets? And if you are, I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. I myself am not, so I just tend to stay out of that. And then another one is how much time you actually want to spend doing customer service and admin. And a lot of that kind of comes back to either what type of CSA you offer, and also what, how much of that you kind of want to farm out to the platform to do. And then the last one of this is a lot of this has to do with what type of CSA you want to run, but are you a people pleaser? Do you have a hard time dealing with complaints? If you're going to put too much kale in the CSA, and then you're going to get, emails and stuff like that. So I've known a couple of people have totally walked away from CSA just because they didn't like dealing with the customer service aspect of it. So, and then just software functionality, for the farmer, I kind of broke this down into what for the farmer and for the customer, because customers do use a lot of these platforms as well. So as far as the functionality for the farmer, it's your payment processing, handling signups and registration, member communications, does it have sort of a built-in, email capability? Also just kind of sending the weekly automated, don't forget to pick up your share reminder stuff, incentives for early sign up payment. Then what I kind of call member management, and some of this is for us, pickup location lists. We do these vacation holds, so people are able to sort of book off a week where they don't get their share, and so that can influence the numbers each week. And we also allow people to switch pickup locations, and so this kind of manages all that for us. And then access to member information, if you're at the pickup spot and someone hasn't picked up, you can easily look on your phone, find their number, text them or call them, say, hey, don't forget to come pick up your share. Pick tickets and harvest lists, a lot of that comes back to the numbers, but just, having access to that. Retention data is kind of nice, just to be able to see like what your retention is. Like we've been using Farmigo for 8 years, so we're able to like look at our retention from previous year's members, which is kind of nice to see. If you're buying stuff in from other farms, we don't really do this, but if you do, it can, you want something that can kind of automatically issue those pick tickets to those farms. If you're doing any kind of delivery routing or integrated routing, or having the ability to export a CSV into a routing app, something like that. Possibly having an online store. And then the thing that I really like about it is just it's kind of built-in record keeping, like and how much, so some of them you can actually look in and see, how many bunches of carrots. If you are certified organic and you're doing the balance audits and stuff like that, it's pretty handy to be able to access the information. And then this would be software functionality for the customers. Is it mobile friendly? Ability to access, manage your own account, easy payment options. And then is there a question? The questions will happen afterwards. Am I going too fast? No?
I think you're good. Yeah, we can if people want to just continue to pop questions in the chat, I'll ask them at the end of the 2 presentations.
I feel like I'm just talking to my computer right now. Okay, so then all-in-one versus a la carte. So do you want something that can do all these things for you, or do you want to kind of piece them out, and have a bunch of different things? So for example, you could kind of cobble together, you could do like use MailChimp to communicate with your customers. You could use a separate routing app, payment processing you could do yourself, or you could accept e-transfers. You could do a sign up wizard, stuff like that. So it's just kind of this decision, like what you want. Do you want to have it all in one thing? And I don't think there's anything that's totally perfect. I still think you're going to need to, I'm kind of curious to talk about Tend, because like we still have to enter in all our CSA, like all our projected sales into our crop planning software. So that'd be nice if that stuff was integrated. And then oftentimes like this sort of concept of back end versus front end, where it could look really, Shopify is a really good example of this, where like it looks really good, but the back end isn't great. So you spend a lot more time, aggregating pick tickets or stuff like that. And so, there's nothing that's really perfect. And then this is just kind of like what we do. This is like this is what our CSA is and how we manage it. And we use Farmigo. This is kind of how we use Farmigo. So the vacation holds is kind of a big part of the Farmigo platform, of having that ability to do that and kind of manage that easily. We didn't want to be too rigid of a CSA where it's like if you miss, when we used to do it, we would sort of allow people to sort of double up, so they would miss 1 week and then they would get twice the amount the following week, but it was pretty hard to follow. We find that vacation hold aspect of Farmigo pretty good for that. And then if folks miss a CSA, they get sort of credits for that week's share, and then they can use it to buy items out of our web store, which is also on Farmigo. Farmigo has its own kind of online store. And then we also have like a separate group of CSA members who don't do what we call the sort of like, normal CSA. They just pick what they want each week. But they still pick up at the CSA pickup locations. So does anybody have any questions?
Maybe, Molly, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah. When would you, hi, so for just starting out doing a CSA, and if I just am just getting the hang of it and only have a few, max 10 to 15 CSA customers, like at what point would you say does it make sense to invest time and money into one of these programs? Like, how big do you have to be, or is it something worthwhile to get started up right from the beginning?
I think that's a tough question. Like, how do you see yourself scaling up, or are you going to stick around that number?
I have to see if I can do this first. I just have to, I have to see if I can make it go. If I can make it go, I for sure would want to scale up, but I don't want to spend a ton of time in the admin if I can't, if I can't deliver.
I think for 10 or 15 people, I don't think you need. And I guess some of it goes back to these models, right? Like, are you just going to run sort of a traditional CSA, where people sign up and they get what you pick every week, or you want them to be able to pick what they get in their share every week? Oh.
Yeah, I think it's yet to be seen. I'd probably do a little of both, like a farmer's choice with maybe something they could swap in or out.
I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with Google Sheets where, like, if say you had 15 people and everyone was like, had access to it, they could, I think for 10 or 15 people, you could do it with like a Google Sheets or an Excel or something like that. I don't know. I don't think I would mess with getting a software like one of these until you want to do it, because it's a pretty steep learning curve of like fussing and figuring it all out. And to be truthfully honest with you, Farmigo might not take you on with 10 or 15 people because their thing is like percentage based. So they, like, if you're small enough, I think they just end up charging you, like, maybe it's like a minimum amount, and it just might be cost prohibitive for you.
So at how many shares would make it worth it to do one of these more intensive programs?
That's a hard one to answer, but like 50, maybe 25. I mean, it's like with everything in farming, like there's so many variables, it's hard to kind of know like what you want to do. Is this a side gig? Is this like, do you have like all the time in the world to dedicate towards this? Like, so yeah, I mean, that's kind of the tricky thing for you to decide. But like 10 or 15, I would say no. And if you're handy with like Excel and Google Sheets, but like any more than that, I don't know. Some of it's a quality of life decision, right? Like, how much time do you want to be doing this? I know the answer for me, but like for yourself, it's probably just figuring out how you want to do that.
Awesome. So thanks. And I saw your hand, Molly, go up right away. So I didn't want to like pass over that. But and I'm sorry if other people's hands went up. I only have a few people on my screen that I can see. But I think what we'll do is just, Jeff, if you are able to just take your screen share off, and then maybe we can move it right into our next presentation, and then people can ask questions once we're through that. Then that would be great, and and feel free to pop questions into the chat as well, like as you think of them, and yeah, we can move along that way. So yeah, we can pass it off to Melad, and you can unmute yourself and feel free to share your screen with us. That'd be great.
Hi, everyone. Just bear with me, I'm new to this. Okay. All right, so I'll just start with a little intro. Thanks, Emily, for putting this together. Thank you, Jeff. I'm Melad. I'm the farm manager at the Sharing Farm. Emily gave an intro about what we do. I just want to touch briefly on our revenue streams before I get into this. So the Sharing Farm, our revenue streams change every year. Last year, we did a 100-member CSA. We did an additional 54 donation baskets, we called them, that went on a weekly basis to food security partners in Vancouver and Richmond. And then we also donate on like a bulk kind of basis to the Richmond Food Bank. You could think of that as a wholesale kind of revenue stream. We just let them know when it's ready and they just come and pick it all up and take it away for us. We also did a market for 5 weeks in the fall, the Kwantlen market in Richmond. And just towards the end of the season, I got the online store, the Tend online store running. And we did only 2 weeks of that. And that it was a good experience. And we're looking forward to getting that up and running in about a month. So the reason why the Sharing Farm started looking into Tend was that this is my first year on the job, and this is not a private farm. It's not owned by any of the workers. You know, the organization hires people to do the work, and so there's, you know, succession needs to be taken into account. When my predecessor left, he took a lot of institutional knowledge with him, and the records were, you know, either non-existent or incomplete. So it was tricky trying to figure things out and plan for the year without comprehensive records. And so when I found out about Tend and I was looking into its features, it felt like a good fit. The other thing was that there are, the one revenue stream that I forgot to mention was corporate groups. So we have a lot of those, obviously not last year, but there's a big need for good communication around the farm and for different members of the organization to know what's happening on the farm, because it's all based on the farm and what's happening on a week-to-week basis. So I'll touch on those features that allow us to do that as well. Yeah, so I think I'll get into it. So first thing that anyone does when they sign up for Tend is you create your account and you enter some details about your farm, farm size, frost dates, currency, measurement system, etc. You can have your logo there. These are details on the online store. I'll get into that later. Billing. So we pay around 600 Canadian, 400 US on a yearly basis. And then there are 3 admins right now. So these are my coworkers. The core crew is 3 people. It's me, the farm manager. Leslie is the director of ops, and Sarah is our executive director. So we're all seasonal to a certain extent. My contract goes from about February, March until December. Same with Leslie's, and Sarah's goes for a bit longer than that. So once that's all set up, then the second thing to do would be to go on the locations, and this is where you create a map of your locations. So I just want to mention this, and the Tend isn't really, I don't see it as a CSA management software. It's more like a farm management software that has some CSA management capabilities. So if you want to start adding locations, you either have the option of doing a field or an orchard. Go with the same location. You can either input your dimensions or draw it. I prefer to input the dimensions. We could just try this one for a change if I wanted to have a field right here. Two tillage methods. This has to do with, well, what kind of tillage method, but also the way your bed size is measured. So I always use tractor. It's just more convenient. And that's our bed width. It goes from the center of one pathway to the center of the other pathway. How can I close that? There we go. Emily, how am I doing for time? I forgot to set my timer.
That's okay. You still have like five or 6 minutes. So.
Oh, well, okay. Okay, so there we have it. And then you have the option of editing that field. So once your locations are all set up, you've got the list over here. It's pretty handy. It's got the acreage on each of the fields and also the total bed feet. So thinking about rotation, that comes in handy. So the next step would be to move on to the crop plan. And the first step is to just determine what crops are growing. So I've got mine selected here. You just go down and kind of check off the ones that you're growing. I haven't come across a crop that we grow or I know of that's not on here. It has trees, berries, all sorts of stuff. And there's your variety. So if we're growing different varieties of basil, there's a database of all the different varieties. And then if you can't find it, you just create a new variety. So I'll just do that. And that's there. So moving on. So to show you my crop plan for 2021, there's a lot of different kind of buttons and tabs and numbers here. So estimated revenue, that's based on the prices of all the things that have been input. You can input expenses. There's another feature. This shows me how much space is being occupied at the different times of the year. And how revenue kind of goes up and down. There's three options for how you view your crops. So there's this option. There's the locations view. So that's all the fields are there, and then the crop, when it's there, appears on the map. And then the third feature is greenhouse seeding dates. So I'll collapse all of those. These are the crops that are getting seeded on those days. And then there's this handy feature here. So this shows me how many flats of each type are going to be in my nursery at the different times so that I could plan for that. So just to give you an example of what inputting a new planting looks like, I'll do kale. And I want to do a succession of, let's say, 3 plantings, 4 weeks apart. Going to do 90 bed feet, let's say 12 inches apart, and 2 rows per bed. Greenhouse start date, let's say May 3rd. 21 days in the greenhouse, you can change that. Field planting dates, days to maturity, and your harvest window. Here's the greenhouse seeding information and your kind of harvest units and yields, estimated yields. So I think I scheduled it for this year. Let me check. Emily, how am I doing for time?
You just have like about 2 minutes left. So yeah, we could probably wrap up, yeah, in 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. And then it shows up here. It's kind of blended into what I had already scheduled. I have to go back and delete that. But anyway, I think that's as much time as I can spend on that. And then this last part, I'll just touch on this briefly. I look at this on a daily basis. So this, everything that I input into the crop plan automatically shows up here. So whether something's getting sowed in the greenhouse or getting planted in the field, it all shows up here. And then when you check it off, it gets crossed like that. And then if you don't get to something, you just move it. And then all the dates change automatically. And there's a selling aspect, which I don't think I have time to get into. But it works for us. I think we made a commitment, and I'm not going to say it's been a smooth ride, but it's working for us, and we're sticking to it. Okay.
Thanks so much. Yeah, feel free to, you can keep yourself on screen share if you'd like. Sorry, so I've had a few messages now that mention that I'm quite quiet, and I'm terribly sorry. I'm not sure why. I'm trying to sit closer to my computer, and so you might just get a full view of my face, but that seems to be working better for people, so I'm getting some nods. So that's just how it's going to be. So we're going to move right into our question answer period. And I know there's a few questions that have already come in. So I think what we'll do is maybe I'll just go through those first few questions and I can just read them and ask both Jeff and Melad to answer those. And then if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask questions, we can do that as well. So maybe if you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question, the best thing would be to just raise your hand in the with the Zoom. There's like a little reactions portion at the bottom that you can hit raise hand for, and Koi can keep an eye on that for us and sort of we can have an order of how that goes. So I can see here, Yuko, thanks for putting in the chat that Farmigo says that it costs $150 a month minimum on their site. Thank you for looking into that and writing that in the chat there. And then I think you also mentioned that it says there is a discounted rate offered as monthly deliveries increase over $100,000. So that's good information to have. And then our first question, I just want to make sure I'm getting them in order here, I believe was from David. So this is a question for Jeff, wondering what's some of the functionality you wish Farmigo had but doesn't?
I wish it had a wash pack, like a wash pack. You know, it issues these pick tickets, but we do all of that, and like our crop planning software does all that. So it's kind of annoying because you have to export from Farmigo into sort of our wash pack software. So it'd be nice if that was all in one. Looks like 10 might have all that in one place. Does that answer your question, or?
Melad, does Tend have that?
So I was, they have a new feature called the pick and pack, and it's pretty new. They only, it's out, sorry, it came out just a few months ago. And before that, I was doing what Jeff does. I was doing that all myself on a separate spreadsheet. I haven't had a lot of time to play around with it, but they've started to offer that function. Yeah. So you plan what you want to pick, and then it just automatically generates. You determine what you want to pick, and then where it's going and how much is going to each place, and then it automatically generates tickets and like printouts.
And so this is a question about Tend as well. Yuko says, I see that you have things like Tunnel 1. If you move your tunnel along with the rotation, do you need to relabel the field name?
If I move my tunnel, no, you don't need to change the name. I can show you that. I don't know, do we want to do that? You just kind of drag the fields to where you want it on the screen and then drop it off there. That's it. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Yeah, Yuko, if you do want to jump on and clarify if that answers your question, feel free.
Sorry, my camera's off. I'm a bit sick, so I'm in bed. You don't want to see it. Yeah, so the question was, yeah, because I saw how you had the tunnels, so I was just wondering if you start doing crop rotations, whether it'll automatically rotate your fields for you, or if you have to like reset everything and then re-input everything every time you rotate your fields.
I'm not too sure what the question is. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, it's probably not a good question because I don't understand how the software works as well. I just noticed that some fields you had ABC, but then some you identified as tunnels, and I wasn't sure if it would treat, like it differentiates what is a tunnel field and what is just an open field.
It doesn't. No, I just named them. Yeah, so the greenhouses and the fields, they're, you know, it treats them as the same.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then this is another question for Tend. So, or about Tend, I should say. How good is it in tracking, like does it do a good enough job tracking so that you can use it for taxes and analysis later on? And then they put in brackets and remitting GST.
It's a good question. Short answer is I don't know. So we didn't really try to utilize that feature this season. I don't know. Maybe we'll try and do it in the future, but I don't really have an answer.
And does Tend have DTM? Does it have regional data beyond the last and first frost dates that you put in manually?
So regarding the frost dates, you can put in your own frost dates. And days to maturity is also something that you can change yourself based on your own records. Tend it has a database and then it automatically inputs data from what it knows, but you can always change that and override it. It's just a matter of like click, backspace, enter.
And this is another question for Melad, and I promise, Jeff, there's a couple coming up for you soon. So this person wrote, I found changing anything in Tend to be very tedious. Does this get easier? How much time do you end up spending in the season on Tend admin? We tried to trial it in 2020 and started inputting everything and then never opened it after June.
It's a hard question to answer because it is my first year using it. I can say I'm on it every day. Yeah, I spent, I don't know, at least like a minimum of an hour a day. And a lot of that has to do with the way our staffing works. So I have to delegate a lot of things, and I have to like have everything set up and ready for my staff, because we only we keep our staff here like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So there's not a lot of time for us to sit down and talk about what needs to happen. I have to have everything ready to go as soon as they come. So I don't know how much of it you can attribute to that particularity of the way the sharing farm works. Does it get easier? I think so. Again, it hasn't been a smooth ride. The customer service is not it's not ideal. It's hard to get a hold of them. It's only through email, telephone, and Zoom. And sometimes you have to wait a bit to get an answer. I think sometimes like a week or two, depending on the urgency of the problem. But they've always gotten back to me, and they've always solved whatever issue I've had eventually, let's say.
Okay, hopefully that answers your question. And if not, feel free to put a follow-up into the chat as well. Or I'm just going to ask one more question that's come into the chat, and then maybe if folks want to unmute themselves and ask a question, we can do that. So this question's for Jeff. How much time do you need to spend entering info and engaging with Farmigo each week in terms of how much time it saves over doing a simple Excel that takes time to data enter?
Do you, if they unmute their, I can talk to them about it a little bit, because I'm kind of curious what they mean by entering info.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Hey.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Hi.
We're up here.
So I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I've managed like 140 person CSA, but you're right, it's a quality of life choice. I tried hiring someone to help with the data entry, and that, training takes time. But anyway, so I just would calculate like how much does it cost in terms of money, and then how much time do I actually save paying for a subscription to a program that helps, but would I then just get it done faster just doing it the old fashioned, doing like an Excel spreadsheet where I have to sit and enter data, but I don't have to I don't know, like how much time do you spend each week interacting with Farmigo?
Yeah. Okay. Now I know what you mean.
Okay.
So one is,
we're really interested in increasing our quality of life.
yeah. Well, listen, this is what this comes down to. Okay. So here's the deal. Do you guys enter all of your customer information into the spreadsheet, or does that happen somewhere automatically through the registration process?
No, I enter it, but I have a high retention, so year to year it's similar.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean that's off the thing, because with Farmigo that all happens in the registration process. So they register, everything's in there. We're not entering anything. I'm trying to think of what data entry we actually do on Farmigo, and it's usually has to do with updating people's accounts. And those are people who somehow are not able to figure out how to do that themselves. Because a lot of people can do that. They can manage their own account. So, how, and my wife does a lot of the Farmigo like customer relation stuff. My relationship with Farmigo is like, just, we have two, our CSAs like midweek and then weekend, right? So on the midweek, I open up Farmigo, I click on reports, I push a button, it just does automatically all the pickup location lists. And what's so important to us is the numbers, right? So then we know, we need to pick, this number of kale, because that could sort of be fluid anywhere between 245 and 265 depending on the week, right? So then we know, okay, it's these are the numbers, and then we have to sort of enter that. We do a bunch of farmers markets and other stuff, so we then integrate that. The annoying thing I was talking about with the pick and pack is that we have to then take that information and then aggregate it with all our other harvest stuff to get a one big main pick ticket. I would love it if that was all in one place, but whatever, it is what it is. And then the other thing that Farmigo does is we print like for people who do the store orders, the web store orders, again, it's just click a button and then it generates a pick ticket for all the store orders. And then another button is printing the labels, which is each person's name. We have these, I get them from Uline now because they're cheaper than the Avery ones, but we just put the sheet in and it's automatically formatted with Farmigo and it just prints these sticker labels and then we put them on the bins. And so that's pretty much all I do as far as interaction go. And it's pretty easy. And I think mostly what my wife does is just like answering, emails, like people who can't figure out how to do the vacation hold. And then she has to sort of manually do it for them. And then, just there's a lot of kooky stuff. Like the credit system is a little goofy on Farmigo's end, the way they present it. So we get a lot of questions of people be like, I don't understand, I'm supposed to have a credit, but I don't. And they just have a hard time seeing it. So other than that, I mean, that's pretty much. And I think the thing too, like, if your business is like at the stage, like there was a while there where like you're just not making money. And then when you start making money and you start paying taxes, I sort of view that stuff as an expense. And I'd rather get the quality of life back and expense those subscription fees. I'm not a big fan of Farmigo as a company at all, but like it works. Like we've never had, there's never been a time when I've gone on there and it says, sorry, we're updating. It just says hours work for us. And I know a lot of people who use it, it works for them, and none of us like it, but them as a company, but the software seems to work for the style of CSA that we're all doing. So did that answer your question? Okay, cool.
What are some other questions that we have? If folks want to unmute themselves, or you can keep putting questions in chat. I can ask them.
I have a quick question for Melad. So how was your experience interfacing with the sales aspect of Tend? I briefly used it in the spring as part of a class for crop planning, but never got to kind of dig into that aspect. Is it like you export data from your square that you use at markets if you use that, or how did you find it? Was it clunky? Was it well formatted? Yeah.
Okay, so I think tell me if I'm wrong, but your question is about what are the capabilities of Tend when it comes to sales? Okay. If it's okay, I'll just do another share screen and show that way. Yeah, okay. Okay. So there's your catalog, and any crop that you want on your catalog, you just add it. Different categories. These are the ones that I've added so far. And I'm pretty sure you can link these to your plantings. So once you have all of this information here, then it will show up in all these other features. So this is the one that I don't have a lot of experience with. The online store is how we've been selling stuff through Tend. There isn't, I don't think there's a way to integrate it into your market sales. I think, yeah, I don't know of a way to do that, but I can show you how this works very briefly if that's what you're interested in. I'll just stop share screen. Yes, no? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like we got some thumbs up, so go for it.
All right. So starting with the settings. Just basic information here that you can input. Some biography, a tax rate, location. So I've only put one pickup, on-farm pickup, fee 0. It's not a delivery, so no delivery address. And then there's a box right there where there's instructions for people. And you can add locations. And this option, I get a notification every time somebody places an order. Category management. These are our categories. You can add some. So back to the store. So you can disable or enable your farm store whenever you want. I'll just update that. Okay. So there's more settings here. I'll just show you that. Here's more information for the customers. You can set an order minimum, pack day, delivery day, and this is the window when people can order. You can pick which locations are available, and then you can add other drop-offs. And then here, this is where all the items in your catalog are, and then you can choose which ones show up in your store. So, oh, and you can also determine how many you're putting up for sale. And then sorry, I'm gonna that. Okay. So now we can look at the store. Oh, and the pictures I've uploaded myself. Pretty standard. And you just, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. And the pick and pack, yeah, I won't get into that unless somebody is really interested. Yeah.
A question that we have here is, do customers sign on to Tend to purchase orders, or does Tend integrate with the Sharing Farm website storefront?
They don't have to log into Tend. It's just like any other web store. There's just a URL that you share, and then you just go on the website and start ordering. You do need a Square account. That's the one detail that I forgot, Anna. Yeah, so you just set up your Square account, and the sales go to your account, and Tend does take 2% off of each purchase on top of the yearly subscription fee.
And you don't need, like, I mean, because from my understanding, and maybe Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but because Farmigo is specific to CSA, you have to have like an account for Farmigo in order to get into it and see like all of your details. Whereas with Tend, like anybody could get onto it and do an online order. Is that kind
Yeah.
of okay? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of annoying. I mean, it just depends on what you're looking for. Like, that's the nice thing about Shopify or Square is like anybody can just log on to your site and start shopping or looking around. Whereas Farmigo, I think you probably, if you were trying to use Farmigo to like just be an online store, you'd lose a lot of people who would just get frustrated with the like, people like with Shopify, it's so easy, like to, you're right there, you're in the store. I think that's a knock against Farmigo if you're trying to use it strictly as online store.
And there's a question here, I think maybe I missed it. Is Tend a subscription service, and is there a yearly fee for it?
Yeah, it is. You can either do a monthly subscription, which is I think $40 US, or a yearly subscription of $400 US.
Do we have any other questions? I'm kind of curious actually, Jeff, because I did listen to your podcast with Jordan, and I know that you went over like a few other platforms, and I noticed that you had a few platforms listed there on your presentation as well. So I'm curious, do you have experience using all of those other platforms like Harvey, Localine, or as well as Farmigo? And are there things that you wish you could like grab from each platform to create like your own one great platform? Like, yeah, maybe you could expand a little on that. Oh, you're still on mute.
I've never used Harvey, and I've literally sat through 2 or 3 Harvey presentations and know people who are what they call Harvey farms, and I still don't understand how it works. So, but basically they take a very high percentage, and it seems like it'd be a disaster to have to pack all those custom shares every week, but maybe it works. So I don't have any experience with Harvey. I do have experience with Shopify, and the other one that's not on here is Local Food Marketplace, which I really like as like a hub software. So if you're like want to run with like a group of other producers and you want to sort of do like a hub or like an online farmers market software, I really like Local Food Marketplace a lot. And I think kind of back to my like back end versus front end, like Local Food Marketplace, and I think farming was a little better, but the front end of Local Food Marketplace isn't great. So like the customer shopping experience, it just seems like 10 years old, 15 years old, whereas the back end is amazing. Like the amount of reports and everything you can do, and just it saves so much admin time. Like, you know, when you're trying to like just a lot of automation of like automatically sending out pick tickets, and it's great that way. I think Shopify is really easy to make it look good, but the back end of Shopify is really a nightmare. It's like a lot of cutting and pasting, and you know, especially if you're communicating to like multiple producers, it just doesn't seem like it's set up for that. So I kind of often dreamed about the Shopify guy just taking all his cash and making this awesome free you know, like with the Shopify front end, but all the like good back end stuff that we would really like. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not anytime soon. So yeah, does that answer your question? Yep. There's this one, there's this place called Delivery Biz Pro, which if you check out a farm, they're just outside of Hamilton, called Plan B Organics. And this guy Alvaro's always been like ahead of the curve on, like, he's the one that kind of put us onto Farmigo way back when, and he's using this Delivery Biz Pro, and it's a very interesting model of like kind of a Shopify Farmigo type situation. And I haven't really looked too much into it, but if you go to Plan B Organics website, you can kind of see what they're doing. And, you know, they're doing like 1,500, 1,700 shares a week, all delivery, like in Toronto. It's pretty impressive. So.
Wow, thanks. And yeah, and I know you and Jordan in that podcast do get into things like a little bit further. It's an hour-long conversation between you both, and I know Jordan has some insights into these as well. So yeah, if I will send that out to everyone, and definitely give it a listen, because you expand more on a few other platforms as well. And yeah. So now we're just past 7, so I just want to move into our kind of after webinar discussion. So I'm actually just going to stop the recording here.